Welcome to the Heart-Centered Sales Leader podcast on webtalkradio.net. I'm your Heart-Centered Sales Leader and host, Connie Whitman. So I hope every week as you join, first you feel my mission or I'm making a movement out there to change that word of sales from being icky, sleazy, and pushy to really one of love, care, and respect. So I hope you join me on that wonderful journey. Also, to help you, the individual, with your mindset, again, around that whole sales kind of component, I have a free communication style assessment. Go to whitmanassociates.com/CSA, freebie for you guys. And it gives you some insight on how you communicate, what your superpowers are, what your blind spots are. But it'll really give you some insight into maybe what's holding you back from that realm of sales. So whitmanassociates.com/CSA, check it out. And lastly, if you love me, which I hope you do, please subscribe, rate, and review. I do read the reviews, and I'm always touched by some of the comments that my listeners are making. So thank you so much for that support. Now, my motivational quote today is by Deyth Banger. And Deyth says, listening to podcasts, reading a book, listening to an audiobook, and watching films isn't a waste of time. It's how somebody becomes wise. So how many of you have or use Audible to read your books just because we're so busy, maybe not on the road so much anymore, but we're awfully busy. Audible recorded books are an amazing way to devour books in our busy lives. Now, did you ever stop to think about the narrators of those books? Well, today, wait till you hear his voice. I have an amazing guest, David White, and David is a voiceover expert amongst many other things. Professionally, David has produced audio and video-based projects while working for the Tennessee School Board Association, 2 ad agencies, and since 2006 spent the majority of his career as an e-learning developer and audio-video producer at a national franchisor. He began freelancing in 2015 and quickly moved into narrating audiobooks for Audible through ACX, then moving on to commercials and corporate voiceovers and narration, all while supporting local video productions, either behind the camera or live on live shows. Most recently, David has entered the world of podcast support, produced projects for clients such as local and regional advertisers, YouTubers, a traveling museum exhibit, and in-house projects for companies like SERVPRO, Dollar General, HealthMaster, and Mars Pet Care. So please help me welcome my amazing, wonderful, tremendous voice, David, to the show. So David, thanks for being on.
Thank you, Connie. I was desperate to give you some weird voice, but I'll just be me.
But you have to be you because your voice is like so cool. And in that beginning, my little intro, I thought I have to put that. I've done Audible for many years. I have clients in Connecticut, so you're in the car so much. Never did it dawn on me. Like, oh, a narrator for an Audible book. Yes, they do have a nice voice. You don't really stop and think about it. So I love that your voice is amazing and people are getting a flavor of why, obviously, you do voiceovers. It's clearly one of your superpowers.
Thank you.
First question. How did you get into this voiceover thing and being the voice on so many books for Audible? It's just so cool.
Well, as a video producer, I've been doing that again since the Tennessee School Boards Association years. And, I am the person in the room that's making the video and I'm the most convenient voice. So I would voice over the videos that I would create. It was easy enough to just be right there, have a microphone and do it. It never dawned on me that I could do that portion of that job as a profession. So should have started it years and years and years ago, but like they say, no better time than today. So
yeah.
I jumped in and started recording. What I was trying to find out was for my current job, I was looking for ways to create audiobooks and from scratch with kind of a user manual in mind, just kind of an easy audio guide for our employees. And what happened was I ended up connecting with a group called ACX. This group is the Audiobook Creation Exchange, acx.com. They are the, they connect Amazon Audible to authors and producers.
Cool.
So what they do is they bring those folks together. So they'll put a book online, and a producer will look at it, and if they want to audition for it, they'll send in an audition, and that's how you get connected. Then you work out the details.
Isn't it crazy how this is so common, right? So people listening to your voice, right? And the first time that I met you, I'm like, you just kind of figured that out. It's not just you, but you were doing this for so long before you realized, like you just said, hey, I could do this for a living, right? And actually make a living doing it. And it's something you like doing because you're a little bit of a techna guy, right?
Yeah.
So people are listening and going, well, didn't he know he had a nice voice? So here's the thing, David, right? You probably fall into this with family and friends and your coworkers. We don't even know what our superpower is, because oftentimes we have something that we're just naturally good at. So we think, well, can't everybody do that? So it never dawns on us to look at that superpower, because it's, oh yeah, doesn't everybody do that kind of perception? To realize, wait a minute, I love doing it. It's fun, and I can make money doing it. So what a great revelation. It's a great story that, better, like you said, better late than never, right?
Something somebody just taught me, well, just recently, was just because it's easy for you, it's probably not easy for a lot of other people. And that actually makes that skill of yours more valuable.
It's true.
And you have to realize that, again, you're unique to an extent. The nice thing about the voiceover world, it's not the people that I know, 99% of them are just great people who are happy to help. They want to just give you advice and bring you into their world. And because, for instance, you and I, Connie, if we were applying for an opportunity, we might be applying for the same opportunity, but you, number one, being a female voice, me being a male voice, we aren't in direct competition. Sure. And me having a darker, warm male voice, that may not be what they want at all. And so therefore I'm not part of their list of what they want. So we don't have that competitive atmosphere that we live in. So it's kind of nice that way. It's a really great environment.
Now, when you and I spoke the first time we met, you said that, well, Connie, you could even read your book and do you could do the production end. I would do the recording piece, and then you do the editing and make sure that it sounds right. How many are you finding that more authors are reading their books, or is it just, I'm too busy, let me hand this off to the expert?
I explain to people that it's a very intimate decision, just almost as intimate as writing the book itself. I think there is a decision that you have to make. Let me start with, hold on just a second. Sorry, you can cut that out. Let me start with explaining this little piece. When someone asks me, should I be a voiceover? I've got a decent voice. I always say, yes, you do have a great voice. Take a book, go into your closet, close the door, and read that for 2 hours straight. Do that for 4 days straight, and tell me if you want to be an audiobook narrator.
Yeah.
Because it takes an amazing amount of time to do it, and to do it well, because every time you flub, every time you get a weird mouth noise, you've got to start that over. That's the technical side. All that said, I work with a company called Twin Flame Studios, and they have coaches for authors that truly want to do it themselves, and they can set on a high-speed digital connection and walk them through the process. After they buy some equipment, set up a clean recording space, then the director will be on the line with them and say, nope, you goofed that little piece up, let's go back and pick up at this sentence. And then they've basically got a book in their own voice. We encourage certain people to do that. We encourage certain people to not do that.
Yeah. And I could just imagine, I know I talk really, really fast, and I felt really bad. I was a gentleman out in Pakistan who knows LinkedIn, just you connect with so many different people. So he invited me to be on his podcast, and shame on me. I I get going. He asked me a question and I started answering. And about halfway through, I thought, whoa, different country. I got to slow down. They're probably thinking, what is this chick saying? So I think all of those things are, you need to take into account, not just the sound of your voice. And what a great recommendation. Sit in a closet, read the book for 2 hours, do that for 4 days. Do you really want to do that for out loud? And do you really want to do that for a living? Because that could be so tedious. Somebody might have a nice voice, but like, that is so tedious. There's no way I'm doing this, right? Yeah, great. See, again, it's because you do it, the recommendation for someone to try it. I love that, because somebody might try it and think, wow, I really do love this. I never thought to do this as a career. So somebody out there listening, it might have resonated with them, right? And they'll take up that recommendation. What's motivation to you? You know, like, you love doing this clearly, but what motivates you?
I'm a problem solver. I like solving problems for people. If I can help them get their voice out into the world by using my voice, that inspires me.
Okay. Did you have, no problem. Did you have anything else to say? That's it.
No, that's it. That's kind of it.
But also, I'm going to see now, I don't know if you know you have this superpower, because before we started recording, I just joined Clubhouse. And so David said to me, hey, Connie, on Clubhouse, I'm just having so much fun in it and getting some new clients. I'm like, yeah, I signed up, but it's technology to me, right? It throws me off. Immediately, David said, oh, at the end, I'll teach you. Come on, we'll jump on and I'll just go through a little tutorial with you. So you like teaching too, don't you?
I absolutely do it. If I could figure out a way to be a total consultant, and be able to feed my family with that goodwill, I would absolutely do it.
Amazing. Yeah.
I like my mom taught first and second grade for 41 years. So I always tell people I literally have the heart of a teacher, and just, that was the way she taught me to do it. Win friends and influence people.
I have to tell you, every time I talk to you, you're like, hey, did you know about? He's always, David's like the share king. But I love that, because I love to share information as well, because you never know who knows what you don't know. And if something can help someone, why wouldn't you share that intel, right? I remember my kids were little, and they were getting to the point where they couldn't sit in the baby car seat. So they had to kind of go up to the next level. Mm-hmm. And there was a certain booster that was good before you just put them on the seat one, still gave them a little cushion and didn't choke them around the neck. So I had done this research and found it. Every one of my friends, I'm like, I got the perfect thing. When you're ready for this, let me know. I'll tell you where to go. And they're looking at me like, what is wrong with you? I'm like, I'm sharing the wealth. I did all this research, and you're right behind me with the age of your kid. Trust me, you're going to, and then when they finally would buy the booster, they would like, oh my God, thank you so much. I would have spent so much money on something else, and it wouldn't have been as good as this. So sharing is caring in my perspective.
Well, I think we've discovered something right here just in this last few seconds.
What? I'm crazy.
There's no. There's we talk about the Karens of the world. You and I can be the Sharons of the world. How about that?
Yes, I love it. It's going to be my middle name, Connie Sharon Whitman. So he's from Tennessee, so he's got that, a little bit of that Southern drawl, and I have the Jersey accent going, right? How has your professional experience brought you to this point? Now you're helping podcasters and other businesses share their voice. Kind of bring us through that now podcasting is hot, right? So Just talk about that. How did that journey kind of go for you?
Well, start current. Audio is hot right now. As we just talked about, Clubhouse is an audio-based social media platform. It's only audio. There is no texting. There's no nothing on there except your written profile. You cannot communicate without speaking on that platform. eLearnings is where I've been for the last 15 years with my current job, and online training for different companies. That's an area that I really want to develop right now is eLearning narration, if I could say it. and of course audiobooks just came from for me. That was a low-hanging fruit option to get into narration.
Sure.
I found ACX, I had a microphone, I had a computer, I have the technology to be able to do the recording and things like that. So it was easy. It was an easy step for me to move into that.
The e-learning's big too, David. I mean, everybody, especially after COVID, people who like me, I was doing everything live, right? Live
Mm-hmm.
speaking, live teaching, live training,
Mm-hmm.
everything was live. And now even if my corporate clients go back to training, right into the
Mm-hmm.
training rooms,
Yeah.
I still think it's going to be a hybrid because you still have to do the social distancing. I don't think that's going to go away anytime
Right.
soon, even with the vaccine. So it's very expensive to bring me in and do
Mm-hmm.
2 classes where you could have done 1. So I think there's still going to be a very big need for this digital platform. So
Yeah.
it's interesting to see what happens with you as you're kind of venturing into that e-learning
Mm-hmm.
platform. I think there's a great need for it.
Absolutely. And the beauty is, as you develop those classes, you may record a class that is now just something that you can sell. And so it's a completed project.
Exactly.
That one of the things, I'll jump in on this, because so many people who want to do the e-learnings or the corporate training, I find so many people in the HR department, not necessarily the training department, but in HR, they get voluntold to create content. And so what they'll do is they'll go find, if they don't feel comfortable in-house recording the audio, they'll go find one of those robot services. And well, let me just say that
horrible.
they are the worst.
Horrible.
The benefit of hiring a voice to be the voice of your company or the voice of that particular e-learning or whatever is because that person can be trained to understand your colloquialism, to understand the terms that you use and how you use them, to make it sound like to me, if you don't care about the listener or the end user, then that's the way you do it. If you actually do care, then you find somebody that makes a connection with the audience.
And think about that too. Like I have my earbuds in so we don't get the background, that back and forth sound effect.
Mm-hmm.
But you're in my ears. Podcasting, and I think maybe that's what I like about podcasting, even if someone's listening on their radio to me on their way to work, it's still personal because I'm talking to them, right? The individual.
Yeah.
It's not like you're talking to a group of people. So I agree with that. And it becomes more,
it's very intimate.
Very intimate. But I think the connection is so great that the learning, we're talking e-learning, right? Especially that learning level goes up because the end user is more engaged than listening to the robotic kind of narration. So there's a big difference. There really is a big difference. And I would guess there's certainly a difference in cost, but I bet you it's not as huge as people would often think.
Well, no, it's not. The other thing I would say that the what you don't want to get in the way of anything you're doing as a live speaker, how much do you enjoy it when somebody gets up and goes to the bathroom from the front row? And it's totally distracting. Anything on stage that the audience is looking at with you, if there's activity or movement or the people are doing something on stage, the lighting's weird, that's a distraction. So that robot voice or a bad voice or something like that, that's a complete distraction from the learning that's supposed to be going on.
It's true. You didn't think of that, but yeah, that's absolutely true. We're penny wise, dollar foolish sometimes. Like what really you have to look at, what is my objective? And if the objective is clear, I think the path or the decision to go robotic or live becomes very clear as well.
Yeah.
All right. So let's share with everybody. This is David's first time on as a podcast guest. So I have to ask, how does it feel to be kind of on the other side of the microphone to some extent and not just in the editing mode where you're kind of listening and fixing the uhs and stuff like that? How does it feel?
I'm very conscious of when I say anything because I know I would have to cut that out later.
I don't edit mine. Isn't that funny? Because, and here's the reason why I have a business coach. He's an expert in podcasting. So he taught me how to edit and all of that. And I have a company that posts it for me. And if the internet or something goes a little wonky, I tell them, hey, go from here to here. Can you kind of fudge it for me? There was a little bit of an error.
Mm-hmm.
Typically though, if, like in the beginning, I stuttered for something I was saying, I was like, wait, let me try that again. Right. That's who I am. And I think that, I don't want to say I've trained, but I want to be authentic and real, and that's who I am. And I know I don't use a ton of tick words to begin with, just because I speak so much.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not afraid of saying the too many ums, but ums and all of that. I want my listeners to get the real me, because that's just who I am. And if somebody wants to hire me or work with me, this is what you get, right? So there's never any editing. But you're so funny, because this is what you do for a living. As soon as you hear the you're like, we got to edit that out. It's hilarious. It's hilarious. And I'm like, that's me. Oh, well, let's deal with it, right?
Yeah. I look for those distractions. If it's a distracting situation, well, the other thing that I will say this, and again, you're not, like you said, you aren't uncomfortable with the way you present and the words that you use. What I tell people is my goal is to make them sound as smart as they are. Because if you've got a doctor, a doctorate student over here going, well, and well, they're not going to sound very intelligent if they're searching and digging for words and whatnot. They know the information. They're nervous.
Sure.
It's okay. So if I can help them, it's not news. News, you cannot mess with it. That's the rule, right? Fake news or whatever you want to call it. But it's you've got to leave it as it was. So that's my goal. Make them sound as smart as they are.
It's true. And I think a lot of people don't speak for a living. Right. So all of a sudden, you're like, oh, that sounded horrible. I had no idea that I said ums and and all of those things. Yeah. So I do think it's important that we have that capability of editing and people like you who could do it. Are you having fun being the guest?
I am.
Okay, good.
Oddly enough, my favorite subject is me. I'm just not good at selling myself from a business standpoint.
You are a nut. I'm learning that every time I talk to you, you are a complete nut, and I love it. Okay.
I cannot take myself seriously. That is my role. People give me a really hard time about it. I've got a group of ass kickers that say, David, you are good at what you do. You do a thing, you do it well. And I'm like, if you say so.
Yeah. Hey, dude, we're all fighting the whole confidence game, right? That whole imposter syndrome, and we've all got it. I don't know. I call it a record. I know the kids say, what's a record? Yes, it's a vinyl that we used to have to actually put a needle on, right? My record is so grooved, David. It's not even funny, right? We all, I think, face that. And it's nice that you have kick-ass people around you to say, like, dude, you got this going, man. You're like the real deal. You're good at it. And I do. I'm a fan. I'm a David fan. So
thank you.
Yeah, totally. Now, what would you tell people who are just so nervous about jumping in to this podcasting arena?
Exactly what you just said. It's you. You don't have to be the expert on anything unless you're doing a show on how to be, on brain surgery or whatever. But that's usually not what podcasts are about. Podcasts are about connections. Podcasts are about getting to know the other person or bringing in a guest. And the one thing I would say, I don't care how it sounds. I don't care how many ums and uhs there are. Just care about the guest that you've got in and that you're bringing in, and introduce that person virtually with your arm around them, and say, this is my friend, because I've taken the time to learn about them.
Absolutely.
Understand who they are, now I want to share that with you, if you're going to have guests.
Yeah. And so funny you said that. I remember when I first started my show, don't know how this happened. The universe clearly provided for me, but I started getting these PR firms saying, hey, my author wrote this book, blah, blah, blah. I think they'd be great for your show. Mm-hmm. Spot on. They were great guests. So I would respond and say, I'd love it. Yeah, let's schedule it. Can we schedule it about 6 weeks from now? And can you send me the book or send me a PDF? Mm-hmm. And the PR is like, you want to read the book? Like at first it was like, you want to read the book? And I'm like, yeah, because how am I going to be prepared? I'll be able to ask even better questions if I've read the book and kind of processed, perhaps using whatever their recommendations and tools were. I would adopt them into my life to say, hey, this is how I tried, look at the results. So the first couple of times, the authors at the end, they wouldn't know that, right? And they would say to me, you actually read the book? And I was like, yes, I always read the book. And they were like, they were amazing questions. And usually before they get on, the podcast host would say, oh, wait, okay, so what are we talking about? Oh, wait, I'm looking at your book. Okay, so this is the gist of it. That was, and then whatever because most PR firms give you the questions to ask, which I like also, but I like to deviate from that because I might have a deeper question, right? To even get into the content more intimately.
Well, because you know your audience and you know what your audience would ask.
Yes. Exactly. Yeah. So when I hear that these other podcasters just kind of go through the questions so that they could throw this content out there, I'm amazed, because for me, that's not good enough, right? I want not only for me to shine and provide good content for my listeners to keep coming back, but I want to spotlight the people I have on to say, man, you got to hire them, go buy the book, maybe use their program or whatever it is, especially if I believe in it. If I don't believe in it, I won't have them on the show. So, you have that going on too.
There's that.
Yeah, there's that. So why do you think podcasting and using video or voice is important for businesses really of all sizes today, in all different marketplaces, not just in podcasting per se or the media field?
From a business standpoint?
Just business in general, yeah.
I think one of the most powerful things right now, obviously, is podcasting. It's being able to multitasking is not a good way to think of it. It's be able to maximize time. So if when we ever get back to normal, if you have salespeople traveling through the airports, sitting on an airplane, driving in the car, whatever that is, maximize that time. Sure, they can be making phone calls and whatnot, but they could also just be listening to a message from headquarters or things like that. That's a perfect use for a corporate podcast. Another thing that a friend recommended is affinity groups. Now, when I refer to an affinity group, it's a group of like people within a corporation or within an organization. So if is it LGBTQ group? Is it people of color? Is whatever that might be, you can have an affinity group, and then they can kind of have, it's a glorified book club. Is that a good way to explain it?
Sure.
So it's a national. If you've got a national footprint with your company, you've got all types of people in your organization, and this just may connect you with a little bit more with them. Because the number one thing that companies do not want to do is rehire people. That is the most expensive thing they can ever do, besides go out of business. And so, keeping people in because they're connected with your organization. If it's through a podcast, for an internal podcast, just do it. And a lot of times you won't have information that's even secure to the company. You could even open it up to other people and make other people have an affinity with your company just from the way you're trying to help your employees.
It's interesting. What an interesting concept, David, because as the baby boomers are retiring, and these younger kids now are graduating and entering the workforce. Millennials are taking more executive positions, right? Everything kind of moves up in scale. They grew up on podcasts. Right. They grew up on choosing what they listen to because of iTunes. You and I, you're younger than me, but when we grew up, whatever was on the radio, that's what you listened to, unless you went out and bought an album or a cassette or whatever it is. So now these kids are tapped into anything they want to listen to any time of day on demand. So what you just recommended, that the younger kids, just from a community, they're very community minded, that kind of information resource from within, it's exactly what the millennials and even like my kids are Gen Zs, that's what they're looking for, to be part of that community, for that intimacy. And I don't mean intimacy in a weird way, but that conduit of information that, hey, employee, you're important to us, and we want to keep you abreast of what's going on. What a great use of a podcast for a corporate client.
I mean, like you and I came along, we talked about Seinfeld at the water cooler, right?
That's right.
So now you have to get you can't do that because you're not watching the same episode last night.
That's right.
You're binging and you're absorbing it media
That's right.
at different rates, and so basically you have to find that you have to find enough people to talk about it, because one-on-one, I mean, that might work, but you could find people all over the planet that have just started watching whatever
Yes.
that show is on Netflix or whatever, and now you have a global affinity group for Seinfeld.
Which is the coolest thing, because your reach of who you are and how you can do business, even and even if you work for a corporate client, because a lot of my listeners are they're employed, right? They're not
Right.
just business owners.
Right.
They have side hustles. That's the other thing I'm finding, that the younger generation, they're getting their full-time job, getting the experience, but they're like, I have this passion over here, and they're
Right.
not afraid to venture out and do a little side hustle. Podcast, again, another great realm for them to, put their antennas out there,
Right.
and get to the larger masses. I love it. And it's funny, I've been doing podcasting for 8 years. I think I've gotten better through the years. I mean, I certainly hope I have, but I hope my content gets better. I hope my delivery gets better. I'm looser and I have more fun with it, I think, because again, I'm able to be me without saying, am I looking at the camera? Is my microphone right? What's the timer on? Or before you're worrying about all the logistics. Now I just go with the flow,
Right.
Yeah, I love it.
As you talk about real quick, corporate communication, that's another arena that has so much potential, because think of every single white paper that's out there that's still relevant. I mean, it's kind of like if you could turn that into audio, or turn it into a podcast, or turn it into something
Sure.
where a potential client can just plug it in and listen to it while they go do a thing. All that time, how much time was spent writing that document? And so
It's
if you
true.
can convert that into a Zoom meeting that you had that was relevant, but you yet need to kind of preserve that and give that to other new hires or whatever, people that couldn't be there at the time, and then taking that and trimming out the Matt, can you mute your mic? Could you
Right,
all that
right,
stuff out,
right.
and making
Can you hear
that
me?
a useful,
Yeah.
making that a useful portable audio experience, or even a video experience. There's just so much opportunity out there to repurpose what we've already done.
And we forget that, because in the past, the moment was lost, but now we're
Right.
recording everything. Everybody's on Zoom. It's so easy to hit that record button. You never know what nuggets of information or reusable content that you're creating without even realizing it, or without even intending to, but you certainly can repurpose it. Great. That was such a great tip, and what a great way to end the show. David, thank you so much for being on. So guys, if you are interested, if you need more information, if you want to talk to David about voiceovers, audiobooks, if you're an author, whatever it is, please go to his website. It's davidwhitevoice.com. Correct, David? I got that right?
Correct.
Or email him if you have like a specific question. I could give your email, yes?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. It's david@davidwhitevoice.com. He is, guys, trust me, just a wealth of information, a lot of fun to have a conversation with. But he really does share some amazing information, content, and ideas. Plus, you heard his voice. So if you need a voiceover, or you have a book and you're thinking about doing the audio version of it to put on audiobooks, by all means, check him out. So again, it's davidwhitevoice.com, or david@davidvoice.com. Of course, you can reach me at whitmanassociates.com. Everything is there. Free resources, that free communication style assessment, my book, my classes, you name it, it's there. One place for you. Easy peasy. This is the way I roll. So check out whitmanassociates.com. David, thank you so much for being on. But I think also for sharing some questions that people, well, I can't do that. Oh, that's going to be too much. Oh, what about? And I think you kind of peeled back the onion a little bit and gave some answers, which I think is so appreciated. So thanks for being on. It was fun. It was a fun show.
Absolutely. I'll give you my quote is, it's a Benjamin Franklin quote, and I have to read it because I never can remember it exactly. Tell me and I forget. Teach me and I may remember. Involve me and I learn. That's where I start from. I just like getting people involved.
It's true. And by the way, it's a lot more fun to live from that point of view where you have that engagement. It's not
Mhm.
just you talking, right? It's about that engagement. It's just so much more fun. Thanks so much for taking the time being on the show and just sharing some great ideas and inspiration. So appreciate it.
Absolutely, Connie. Thank you so much.
Oh, my pleasure. And I hope you will join me weekly as we question, build, and discover together that being a heart-centered sales leader or just being a heart-centered leader is easier than you think. And sometimes just shifting your mindset ever so slightly, and hopefully my guests and the content we share help you pivot and shift your paradigm of thinking, so that you're able to continue on your journey with a lot more ease and grace. Thanks for tuning in to the Heart-Centered Sales Leader podcast with me, your heart-centered sales leader and host, Connie Whitman, on webtalkradio.net. Have a wonderful week, everyone, and really open your minds to that client relationship. Like David said today, right? It's never about him. Well, it is about him, but it's always about the end user and how they're learning. And that's really how we become the heart-centered business people that we should be and try to become. I'm excited and honored to have you on this journey with me. And I'll just see you guys next week. Thanks so much for tuning in.